Hi friends, my name is Maddie and welcome to my YouTube channel. Okay, for today's video, I thought I would go over my favorite romance books that I read every single month. In my favorite books of 2023, I highlighted a lot of fantasy books and definitely not as many romance books, so I thought it would be fun to kind of talk more about the romance books that I read because I did read quite a lot of really great ones. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Of course, every single month has probably more than one book. Most months have 2 or 3 books. I'm looking at my list. So in January, one of the best books I read was a reread for me. It was American Queen by Sierra Simone. This is a Camelot retelling. This book centers around Greer, and she is supposed to marry the President of the United States after his wife dies, and there's tons of angst in this. It is simply incredible. If you're new to Sierra Simone, I feel like this is a good start. I think this is one of her first series that she wrote, I believe, and it's super fun and very angsty, like I said, so it's a good one. And then the other book that I picked up in the month of January, which was one of my favorites, was Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This one didn't entirely sell me the first go round, but I have absolutely fallen in love with the characters. It is fantastic. This is basically Gossip Girl meets London and their socialites. I feel like it's best to go into this book blind, but just know it is Gossip Girl meets London and very lavish lifestyle, and it's so fun to look on like the Instagram pages and like figure out what outfits the characters are wearing in each scene, so it's really a great time. Moving along to February, I read Play With Me by Becca Mack. This is a hockey romance and it is the second book in this series. It follows the trope of the brother's best friend and he has to move in with the sister, and so for proximity and just being around each other. This book is absolutely hysterical. It is probably one of the funniest books I read this year, especially in a romance. I would say it is definitely the funniest book. It was like making me laugh out loud, honestly, so you know it's a good book when it's making me laugh. I really enjoyed the characters' connection in this book and I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed the first one as well, but there was something about the second one that just like blew me out of the water. One of the other books I picked up in February, and I'm so glad I did because it ended up being one of my favorite series this year, and it is Blood Mercy by Bella Roth and the Blood Grace series. This is about a girl named Cassia who lives in a world of vampires, but they call them Hesperians in this world, and she is trying to overthrow her tyrant of a father, so her and her diplomat Leo team up together to kind of overthrow the government. And it's very slow burn. There's a lot of classical fantasy elements about it. I've raved about this book over and over again on my channel and I'm never getting sick of it. Like I said, it is very slow burn. It does drag out a little bit through the series, but it is so worth it. And moving into March, I ended up picking up The Loser's Duet by Harley LaRue. Moving into March, I ended up picking up The Loser's Duet by Harley LaRue. This is a Why Choose duet, and it revolves mainly around sexuality and sexual exploration, which I think is done fantastic in this series. You learn, I had to Google quite a few things in this one. This is probably like the smuttiest book I've ever read in my life. Ooh, yeah, there's a lot that happens, and they're both really thick books too. This is about a girl named Jessica. She is the popular girl in high school, and she is like supposed to have her life together and she doesn't. She kind of comes back to her hometown and gets into a bit of a mess with the 4 boys revolving this book. Her friends damage these guys' cars and she has to pay them back. I really enjoyed this book. It, like I mentioned, it discusses themes and elements of sexuality very, very well, I feel. There's a bit of a twist at the end and there's some like suspenseful elements going on, and Jessica's trying to figure out like what she wants in life, and because she's so like has had her life set up for her by her mother and she doesn't really want those things. And overall this was just such a great read in my opinion, so highly recommend. In April, I read a lot of really great books and I had a really hard time deciding which one was going to be my favorite, so I'm listing 2 again. And the first one I picked up was Magnolia Parks Long Way Home. I was really hesitant about this one. Like I said, I wasn't entirely sold on the first 2 books in the series, even though I really did like Magnolia Parks, the first book, but this book absolutely destroyed me. You learn the reasons why the characters are the way that they are and why they make these decisions. So I now want to go back and reread Magnolia Parks to like put all of the pieces together. I think Jessa Hastings is a great writer, and she has this element of like being able to just like suck you in and like keep you there. As I mentioned, I feel like it's best to go in blind. This is the third book in the series, and it is definitely my favorite so far. The next book I picked up in April was Blood Orange and the Dracula Duet by Karina Halley. This is the first book I picked up by Karina Halley in forever, and I absolutely loved it. This is a Dracula retelling. The female main character in this book is a vampire hunter and has kind of been like in this cult-like society, and she's after Dracula. This is some of the best smut I've read in a really long time, and this got me out of like a wicked reading slump pretty much. It's really great. It's a pretty quick, easy read as well, so highly recommend this one. So in the month of May, I didn't read a whole lot of romance, at least ones that really stuck out to me. A lot of books in this month were fantasy books that like I absolutely loved. So I ended up picking Misfits Like Us, which I ended up giving 4 stars to. This is the 11th book in the Leica series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. It focuses on Luna Hale and Donnelly, who is her bodyguard. I really have come to love and enjoy Luna and Donnelly, so I highly recommend the Addicted Verse series just in general, but this is not like a great starting point obviously because you're now like 22 books into the series. But overall, I just think of this series, I think Luna and Donnelly are my favorite, and I feel like they have the best dynamic. Luna is kind of weird, she's a fangirl, she's kind of out there and a little bit more introvert, which I really like, and I feel like her and Donnelly just have this really great balance, and that's why I picked it as my favorite this month. Okay, so for June, I ended up picking Next to You by Hannah Bonham Young. This is a friends to lovers novel, romance novel. It is the second one in the series. I haven't read the first one, but I highly recommend this one because it can be read as a standalone. This is about a girl named Blaine. She is in the middle of like an identity crisis. She has all of her friends who are coupled up. Her job's not really going anywhere, and one night she gets drunk and decides to buy a school bus to renovate it. And of course she immediately like regrets this decision, and she runs to her friend Matt, who is a mechanic, and they decide to fix up this bus for her so she can kind of like live her life. What makes this book great is the way it handles anxiety and panic attacks and the loss of a loved one. Elaine loses her father at a younger age, so she's kind of still dealing with the aftermath of his death and not really addressing it until she has to, and kind of healing before you're able to jump into a relationship. So I think it handles that stuff very well, and I really enjoyed this book. I think Matt was just so understanding and caring and just wanting what was best for Lane. So in July, I picked up The Rest of the Story by Tal Bauer. This is another hockey romance, but it is so different from all the other ones I have recommended or mentioned. This is about a man named Morgan. He's at the end of his hockey career, and he gets traded to the worst team in the league, and because of that he just kind of decides that he's going to ride out the rest of his career. But when he gets there, he notices something is immediately notice something is wrong, and within 24 hours he is now the team captain, which is not what he wanted. He was never the team player on his other teams, so everyone's kind of shocked that he's the one who has stepped up. Of course, he partners up with the rookies, kind of self-assigned captain, who is named Shane, and they slowly fall in love with one another, and it's just so sweet. And even though they're dealing with like the horrific aftermath of everything that has happened to this team and the trauma, the thing I love most about this book, besides the romance, is the found family that this team and these boys have. It is so sweet and adorable. Like, they have cookouts together and play like video game tournaments together, and they all just kind of look out for one another because they know they have to. And it's like one of those things where it's like, I want you to look out for me, so I'm gonna look out for you. Shay is just such a great, strong character. Shay is a little bit older than some of the players who are rookies. He's like 21, the rest of them are like 18, 19, so they're very young, very fresh faced, and like this is their first experience playing hockey in like the pro leagues. So they basically kind of just have to turn this team around and learn to work together, and they really want to, is the best part about it. In August, I decided to pick up Red, White, and Royal Blue in anticipation for the release of the movie. This is about Alex, who is the first son of the President of the United States, and Henry, who is the Prince of England, and they slowly fall in love. I love their dynamic so much. I think it's awesome. But basically they have to pretend to be best friends because Alex and Henry get into a little bit of trouble with the press at Henry's oldest brother's wedding, and story kind of goes from there. And another book that I picked up, it really just solidified my love for Luna and Donnelly, was Unlucky Like Us, which is the 12th book in the Like Us series, and it is the second book in Luna and Donnelly's story. So overall, I just really love their story, if I haven't said it enough already. All right, in September, I had the hardest time deciding what my favorite book was. I read a lot of fantastic books. I was traveling a lot this month, so I was reading a lot of books on my phone, and I'm not a huge fan of reading on my phone, like reading fantasy books on my phone. So I read a ton of romance books, and I found so many that I loved. The first one I have to mention is Butcher and Blackbird, which is a serial killer romance. Basically, this guy is cleaning up after this one girl, and she is a serial killer, so that's super interesting and just really entertaining, and it's a bit dark, a bit grim. Check the trigger warnings on it, because obviously you're dealing with kind of like not super great subjects. And overall though, just a really fun read, and I'm super excited for the second book. Another favorite of mine was My Temptation by T.L. Swan. This is her newest book in the Kingston Lane series, I think it's called. This book starts off with Juliet and Henley going on a date, and I think he ghosts her, or she sees him on a date with another woman, but it ends up being like a miscommunication thing going on. And she ends up moving to like the best neighborhood that everyone wants to live in and on the best street, and he ends up being her next door neighbor. So they living next door to each other, they're both bothering each other. She has this obnoxious dog. He's like always being annoying to her and like in her business. And so it's kind of a little bit enemies to lovers. But I just thought they had really great chemistry. T.L. Swan is one of my favorite romance authors, so I'm a little bit biased, but it's just so much fun. I always have such a great time reading T.L. Swan's books, so definitely check it out, and I feel like it's a great place to start with T.L. Swan's books. Another book that I read in the month of September was A Ship of Bones and Teeth by Karina Halley. This was my year of Karina Halley. Everything I read by her I absolutely loved and adored. This is a Dark Little Mermaid retelling, and highlights kind of the aftermath of everything that happens in The Little Mermaid after Ariel becomes human and all that fun stuff. It has mermaids and pirates and magic, and there's a version of vampires in here, but it's pretty like mild on the happens towards the end of the book. But this book is also a standalone, so if you're looking for a great, awesome, spicy little standalone, this is a really good one. I ended up picking up In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. This one was one that I had kept seeing float around, and I would not pick it up for some reason, and I'm so glad I did. This is about Shay, who is wanting her grandmother's farm to inherit it, but one of the catch is that she has to be married, and her fiance just left her at the altar. So in steps Noah, who's taking care of his niece, and they kind of start fake dating, fake relationship sort of thing, so she can inherit what her grandmother left behind. Another catch is that Noah loved Shay in high school, and she has absolutely no idea. I just really love these two together. I thought they were fantastic. This book reads super easily, super fast. Pacing about this book is incredible, especially for being as long as it is, but they both kind of like flip each other's world upside down, and it's just overall just such a great read and definitely one of my favorites. In October, I picked up a book that I didn't realize was so controversial till like now. I picked up Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maher. I have learned that people either love this book or they hate this book. I loved it. It matches my lipstick too. So this is about a girl who is assistant to what they call the villain. And the story, the plot twist at the end of this, fantastic. I cannot wait for the second one. Evie is just being the goofy assistant to the villain. I had a really good time reading it. I just thought it was fun and very different because you don't see a lot of like fantasy rom-coms, and so I thought this was a really good one considering what it is. Fantasy rom-com isn't a huge genre, so I think I had a good time reading it. I don't know what else to say. If you didn't like it, sorry, that's your loss. All right, we're at the end of the year almost. So in November, I picked up King of Wrath. This is about Dante, who is being blackmailed by Vivian's father, and he has to marry her. Vivian is very open to the idea of having a relationship with him, and he is very closed off, but he cannot stop thinking about her. I just had such a great time reading it. I was not a fan of Anna Huang's writing until this book, but now I am truly obsessed with it. I think it was just so much fun. It was a bit mindless, and I just had a really good time reading it. Another book I read in November was Salt Kiss by Sierra Simone. I really enjoyed Sierra Simone this year, if you can't tell. This is a Isolde. I think I said that right. I never say the girl's name right in this book. This is a Tristan and Isolde retelling, so it's very angsty. I don't know a whole lot about the legend or how accurate it is. Probably not very accurate. This is about Tristan, who goes to work for Mark as his bodyguard. Tristan pretty much feels like he has no purpose in life. He just got out of the army and Mark decides to hire him. And Mark owns a sex club. These two slowly fall in love with one another, kinda, sorta, not really. And then Mark asks Tristan to go sail across the sea, go get Isolde, who is his wife, who Mark did not tell Tristan about, and bring Isolde back to Mark so he can marry her. So if you like angst, Sierra Simone's for you. This one's definitely for you, and I cannot wait to get my hands on a copy of Honeycut when it comes out in like June or July. Then I also picked up ACOTAR. I love ACOTAR. I love the first and second one. They're still fantastic. I had just such a great time reading them. I did mention it in my favorites of the year book, but I just truly love these books so much. I just love the characters. I love the dynamics. I love the dialogue. The best way I describe it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that takes a hard right and then just keeps going that way. But this is just one of my favorite series of all time, so can't go wrong. And last but certainly not least, we have the month of December. And I was in a reading slump for about half of December because I decided to pick up Manacled. I feel bad saying Manacled is a romance. Do people call it a romance? I don't know. I feel weird calling it a romance because it's awful and it doesn't feel like one half the time. But this is a Dramamine, or a Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger fanfiction that is very popular on Archive of Our Own. You can find the link there. It is insane, and my life has been divided into before Manacle and after Manacle. It has been like a month and I'm still thinking about it. This book has a lot of triggers, so I'm like, don't even know if I can call it a romance truthfully. But it's definitely one of the best books I read in 2023, and if we're gonna classify it as a romance on a technicality, this is probably like the best romance I've read all year. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel and come hang out with me and talk to me more about books and all the fun things revolving books. Please let me know what your favorite romance book was in 2023 and maybe I'll add it to my TBR. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.